Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hussey's Huddle. In this video, we are going to be looking at one rookie for every CFL team that I felt has impressed so far this season. But really quickly before we get started, if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting the like button and subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. I greatly appreciate it, everybody. And with that said, let's get started with the video. So I wanted to talk about rookies today here in the CFL because I think in the league this year, there has been a lot of notable first-year players, whether they officially qualify as rookies or not. I think the CFL is this weird thing where it's like if you have NFL experience, if you've dressed in an NFL game, you're not eligible to win CFL Rookie of the Year. There was a guy named Dietrich Nichols last year for Winnipeg that wasn't eligible to win Rookie of the Year, even though I think he would have won it. But ultimately, I think there's been just so many great rookies so far this season, and the inspiration for this video is who we're going to start with, and we're going to go in the order of the current standings as of the recording of this video, starting in the West, and then we'll go to the East. So we're going to start with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and I'm going to go with wide receiver Dalton Schoen, who they signed out of Kansas State. On the season, in 7 games played, he has 28 receptions for 503 yards and 4 touchdowns, including an 81-yard touchdown last week against Edmonton. And this guy has just been a dynamic difference maker for this team. He has really stepped into a really key role for this offense after they lost a whole bunch of guys in free agency. Obviously, Kenny Lawler, but they're also dealing with the injury to Nick Dembski as well. They lost Darvin Adams. A lot of key receptions from last year that they're missing from this team, and Dalton Schoen has been a huge part in filling the gap. They also have other notable rookies like Donald Rutledge, who started for them at strong side linebacker, but Dalton Schoen, in my opinion, has been the most impactful rookie in the entire league this year, and we're already at the beginning of the video, but he was the inspiration for making this video after he had a magnificent game last week and has really made an impactful play almost every week I've seen him play this year. And what really stands out to me about Schoen is just the amount of big plays that he is creating. It seems like he makes a key catch for this offense every week, always there at the right place and right time. And I think that is just super important for this team, especially when you look at this roster. A lot of these receivers for Winnipeg, they're not exactly the best deep threats. I think Darvin Adams was the guy that really gave them that. Obviously, Kenny Lawler, a lot of that as well. But I think they were missing that going into the year, and Dalton Schoen has really made up that gap and made this offense a more explosive offense at the end of the day. So he is my front runner for Rookie of the Year as of right now. The next team in the current standing is the Calgary Stampeders, and I think with this one, there's a couple of ways you could go. Titus Wall is a great pick, as well as a strong side linebacker who has made a couple of key plays for this defense so far this season, especially in that game against Hamilton. But the guy I'm going to go with is running back Peyton Logan, who also features as this team's kick returner and punt returner, and he has looked really excellent. I think they found something in this guy. He's just super jittery, honestly. He's very quick side to side, great change of direction, quickness. That's really what stands out to me about him. He's kind of like a Darren Sproles kind of guy, and I think that has really added a new element to this Calgary offense when they want to give Kadeem Carey a break in the backfield. Already on the season, he has 149 scrimmage yards and a touchdown, in addition to what he is doing as a kick returner and punt returner. He had a big missed field goal return touchdown in the Edmonton game, and he's averaged 24.9 yards per kick return this year and 11.8 yards for punt return. And I don't think those numbers really do it justice because he had a punt return touchdown called back in the Winnipeg game. So I think Peyton Logan has looked very good. And honestly, if he didn't get hurt in that Hamilton game, I think that's the game that they lost all their running backs, he would have had even better numbers than he currently does. The next team up here is the BC Lions, and this one is a relatively easy selection for me, and that is safety Quincy Mosier, who is a former Georgia Bulldog who has started from day one at safety for this team. In 5 games played, he has 15 defensive tackles, 2 special teams tackles, a sack, an interception, and a forced fumble, so he's really stuffing the stat sheet early on in this season. And I think just from the eye test, BC has just been a very, very good team in terms of the back end of this defense so far this year. And having a guy like that who's a rookie that broke into this unit, which is a very, very good unit, as I just said, I think that is incredibly impressive when you see a defensive back start early on in his CFL career in his first year. It's relatively rare, and I think he has done a really good job filling in at that safety position for the BC Lions and really taking hold of that since training camp. Next, my pick for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and I'm going with running back Frankie Hickson, who has been in a little bit of a combo role with Jamal Morrow, who is the regular starting running back. But in limited opportunities, in 29 carries, he has 222 yards and a touchdown while averaging 7.7 yards per carry. And I want to point attention to just one play in particular. He had a 65-yard run in that game against Ottawa, I believe, and that was one of the best CFL runs I've seen in a long time. You could tell that elite level speed, that breakaway speed was very apparent with Frankie Hickson, and I liked what I've seen so far from him this season. I've started him in fantasy a couple of weeks as well, and I think that, I don't know how much of a role he has in terms of going forward because Morrow has been so excellent as well. But to have that 1-2 punch and have that in case of the Morrow injury, I think that is super reassuring for Saskatchewan going forward. And Hickson has looked excellent, and they've kept him involved in the offense in multiple different ways. And last up in the West Division, we have the Edmonton Elks, and the guy I'm picking here is a very interesting player, probably one of the most interesting first-year players in the league this season, and that is quarterback / wide receiver / running back Kai Locksley, who's really been doing it all for the Edmonton Elks offense, starting games at wide receiver, but also being the short yardage quarterback for this team. Even had opportunity to even lead the whole offense at quarterback at times so far this season. And he's just been kind of that Swiss Army knife, that ultimate Chris Jones player. I just really like the fact that he is willing to do whatever it takes for the team. He's come down with some nice catches as well, despite not being a wide receiver when he came into the league. He's really transitioned very nicely. He was a quarterback at the University of Texas, El Paso, UTEP, and I think that he has shown that he's doing whatever he needs to do in order to make this league, and he is doing an excellent job at it, and I'm really been impressed. One of the more interesting players so far in the league this season, and I still think we may see him start at some point this season at quarterback for the Edmonton Elks, and honestly, I would not be against that because I think that he's shown a lot of potential in the limited opportunities he's shown. Ultimately, I don't know if he's that good of a thrower. That's, I think, maybe what's holding him back in terms of why they haven't given him an opportunity to start yet. But all those athletic tools that he brings to the table, quite impressive, and that's why he has found a role for himself here in the CFL and has been an excellent guy in terms of the short yardage game as well. In 6 games played this season, he has 5 completed passes for 50 yards, 18 carries for 49 yards, and 5 touchdowns as that short yardage quarterback, and then 10 receptions for 148 yards. So just a little bit of production across the board. Just a very interesting player to look at and a guy to monitor going forward. Switching over to the East Division now with the Toronto Argonauts, who are currently leading the East Division. My pick here is defensive back Tavares McFadden, who has been starting at cornerback for this team since day one this year. He has looked really, really good. I think that, again, is a good sign when you see a first-year defensive back make it in the CFL, because defensive back, one of the hardest positions to play in the CFL. You have to cover so much area, and he has done a really adequate job of doing that as a very young player in this league. In 5 games played, he has 14 defensive tackles, 1 special teams tackle, and an interception in the game against Montreal. And he played his football at Florida State. So some notable guys here, guys that played at pretty big colleges, including Tavares McFadden here. So very impressive from Tavares McFadden. Let's see if he can keep it up as a starting DB in Toronto's defensive back room, which I thought was pretty good going into the year. He was able to crack that lineup, so shows he is a very capable player, and he beat out a lot of experienced CFL players to do it in training camp. So I like what I've seen from Tavares McFadden. Let's see if he can keep it up. Next up in the East Division, we have the Montreal Alouettes, and they're a team that doesn't really have too many standout rookies so far this season, But the guy I'm going to go with is wide receiver Tyson Philpott, one of their first-round picks from this year's draft. And the numbers aren't going to be too exciting for you. He has 4 receptions on this season for 91 yards and a touchdown with a long of 61 in there. But I think what's most interesting about Tyson Philpott is the roles that we've seen him play. He has been a kick returner, punt returner for this team, and I think that's pretty rare to see a Canadian player. You've seen that a little bit more this year with teams using Canadian players as punt returners and kick returners. Usually you hadn't seen that a lot in recent years, and Tyson Philpott has been trusted to do those roles for the Alouettes and has done a really good job, I think, especially on kick returners when he has averaged 27.8 yards for a kick return. So honestly, I think he has looked really good this year in the limited opportunities. I'm excited to see what he can do if he gets a bigger role within this offense. Obviously, they have a couple of really good Canadian receivers right now in Hergy Mayala and Keon Julian Grant that are ahead of him on the depth chart, but I think eventually you're going to start to see him get more and more opportunities on offense to really show what he can do. And on that 61-yard catch and run, really showed what he can do in terms of his athleticism. So I'm really excited to see what Tyson Philpott brings to the table going forward. Now, second to last here in the video, we have the Hamilton TigerCats. And again, another team that doesn't have a ton of options for a video like this, but one really stands out to me, and that is kick returner slash punt returner slash defensive back Lawrence Woods, who has broke onto the scene and really took the punt returning duties and kick returning duties from Poppy White, who did a pretty good job of that last year for the TigerCats. But Woods took it in training camp and ran with it, and he has already produced multiple explosive plays on kick returns, including a kick return touchdown in the game against Edmonton. He also had a major kick return in their win against Ottawa, which he really should have scored on that play, just kind of tripped at the end. But he has looked incredibly explosive. He's also played some defensive back, as he's kind of that sixth guy that dresses on game day when an injury happens. He gets plugged in there, and he's done an adequate job at that as well. We just haven't seen too much of a sample size on defense, but ultimately, just because of the special teams value that he brings to the table, I think he's been an excellent addition for the TigerCats this season and has been an excellent find by the TigerCats scouting department. And then the final team of this video is the Ottawa Redblacks, and like the two teams before them, there's just not a ton of rookie options to choose from or first-year player options to choose from. So I'm going to go with a guy that's only played 3 games this year, but has made an impact, made his presence felt in the games that he has played in, and that is defensive back Hakeem Bailey, who has started at corner for this team. He had a big interception against Hamilton at the goal line that looked like it was going to seal the deal in that game for Hamilton or for Ottawa. And I think that was really impressive. He really read the defense on that play. I'll show it in the video that you're currently watching. But ultimately, just not a ton to choose from for Ottawa. I'm really excited to see if he can continue to, Ottawa continues to start him at that boundary corner position that they've been playing him at. I think that is a very important role on defense. So ultimately, when you trust a first-year player in that situation, you can tell that they love his potential. And I'm really excited to see, once we get a bigger sample size, that's the thing with defensive backs, we need bigger sample size to really judge how they're going to be doing in the CFL. And I think with Hakeem Bailey, we've liked what we've seen so far, and I would like to see if he can keep that going. From a statistical standpoint, in 3 games played, he has 9 defensive tackles, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble, and it's also worth noting that he played for the West Virginia Mountaineers in college, so a pretty big school there as well. And ultimately, like what I've seen so far, let's see if he can keep it going. But ultimately, that is just one rookie for every CFL team that I felt has stood out so far this season. Some teams have multiple guys that I feel have shined, and then others, I think they're maybe not having many notable guys, but I wanted to include one for every team in this video. Be sure to let me know if you guys disagree with any of my selection, if there's anybody obvious that I missed. Quite possible. CFL, pretty big league in terms of knowing the rosters. So ultimately, be sure to let me know in the comment section what you think, guys. And with that said, hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.